Okay, I'm going to remove the two Michael Marks that haven't changed their name.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
If I disappear, then I'll be back. Okay. Welcome to the November Verse Virtual, our little piece of Thanksgiving for this month. This is a special reading in which I've chosen two people from the poetry community who exemplify for me good citizenship in the poetry community because of their kindness and their generosity, as well as their wonderful poetry. So I've chosen Michael Mark and Kai Coggins to represent those qualities today as features at First Virtual. We'll start with Michael Mark, who is going to open for Kai. Michael's poetry has been published or is forthcoming in Alaska Quarterly Review, Copper Nickel, Michigan Quarterly Review, Pleiades, Plowshares, Poetry Daily, Poetry Northwest. And I think he's alphabetized those. I'm very impressed. The Southern Review, Rattle, New York Times, The Sun, Waxwing, American Life and Poetry. Well, not quite. The author of two books of stories, Toba from Athenaeum and At the Hands of a Thief from Athenaeum. He has a website at michaeljmark.com. Take it away, and I'm going to turn up my sound.
Thank you, Robbie, for inviting me. And I want to commend you because of your tireless support for the poetry community is really inspiring. And it is an honor to read with Kai, another incredibly gifted and giving spirit. I'm going to read a few poems today that touch on family. The first one certainly does. My mom passed some years ago, and those who know that they take a special place within them after they're gone. You still have them with you, and this is I turn the tables. So nothing's as hard as we make it. Get out from under my feet, I tell her, like she told me countless times. Go have fun with the other dead moms. She's not acclimating. The ladies look nice, clean, I say. Go. She leans her weight deeper. I give her a nudge, a zetz, she'd call it. Not so hard that she feels I'm disappointed. Make me proud, I say. Show the afterworld who my mother is. She spits. Who made me an expert in the afterworld? I open a bag of fresh apples I thought of all morning. How she picked them from the grocer's for me, turned each slow, inspected every curve, shading, dimples for soft spots. Then all afternoon I remembered how she washed and dried, then shined them with her breath, cut crisp slices. Take a piece, Mom. Share. This is Stella. This is Alice and Tess. This one takes place on a ship in the Baltic. My wife, Lois, is a travel writer. Sometimes I get to go with her. Here we were in the Baltic, and I was walking around the deck, and I saw four gentlemen, older gentlemen, side by side on chairs, sleeping, wrapped in blankets, and this is what came of it. Oh, I should say that I use a word, and I don't think I pronounce it properly. It's spelled Gzhel. and I'll say Zell. I think that's how we do it. And that's a ceramic that's made in Russia. We were in St. Petersburg and Russia, and they also sell it in Greece. Blue and white, it's beautiful. A row of worn captains, side by side on deck chairs, wrapped in blankets, as they were in nurseries and barracks, little heads pinking in the Baltic. In St. Petersburg, they toured over Kabul, through Greek churches and Zell shops, leaning on canes, sun-painted walls and wives. Today, a sailing day, Tallinn to Gdansk, from sleep's deep trench, waves of mermaids rise, falling from soft, slack mouths, the ocean. And my dad is 95. I think he's on. He's one of the Michael Mark impersonators, although I'm a Bob Mark impersonator, I think. And we were always very different, but now, as we got older, we've become best friends. If I say the butterfly is beautiful, Dad, if I say the butterfly is beautiful, Dad, he'll say it's a bug. If I say it likes him, he'll say, who needs friends? If I say once it was a caterpillar, he'll say next it'll be dead. If I say it's a symbol of change, he'll inch his butt to the bench's edge, rock back and forth, like the physical therapist taught him to get momentum, to stand safely. Then after 3 settling breaths, he'll turn and start shuffling towards the car. If he's feeling steady enough, if the breeze isn't too hard, he might spread those bony elbows, look back at me, and flap them. So you can see I write a lot. I'm a hospice volunteer, and I've always loved older people. I feel there's tremendous drama in trying to live your best life under the challenges of the body, in some ways, falling. And so this is called a daily practice. And it's a way of looking at impermanence, and it's scary impermanence. But you could look at it in another way, and I think I tried to do that here. I do use in the poem temporary, and I italicize it because I want the reader, that you're not able to read it now, but to see that the speaker is actually writing the word temporary on these little sticky notes. So a daily practice. After I write temporary on each sticky note and press them onto socks, silverware, bills, my hair, I put one on each maple tree in the yard and notice I don't think of them as eternal as much. All it takes is a single word on red, yellow, green tags to remind me the car isn't mine, the house isn't mine. Snow, money, flowers, do that just being themselves. But I stick one on fear and another on hate, pushing with all my weight so they stay. Dogs are born with the knowledge, so no need. But older people, even shrinking in hospice beds, yes. Somehow they transform temporary into still here. Babies are so hard, I almost can't. When the pad is empty, I wait for the glue to lose its grip and fight the urge to blow or peel them off. Sometimes a wind comes and I stumble around trying to catch them. This one is for one of my greatest muses. This is my mom again. I was visiting San Francisco with Lois, traveling, and we live in San Diego. And I wrote this poem. Mom had Alzheimer's. Watching the Golden Gate Bridge disappear. Mom, I'm in San Francisco, and the bridge is being taken away. The East Tower is almost completely gone. All morning, the pillars resisted the fog until they were exhausted. Was it like that for you when you didn't know how to make your famous tuna the way I liked it anymore? And you kept calling me the mean tailor. I needed to take in your house dress. You'd gotten so thin. The suspension cables barely peek out now, and the cars are creeping into the invisible. It's getting hard to remember how it was. The locals tell me to just wait. In a moment, the whole bridge will return with the cars, the boats, the bay, the sun. This is a poem about a mistake. I think it's not clear to me, maybe to you. Lois and I go to this lovely place to have muffins. We love these muffins. So, mistake at the muffin place. I touched the hand of a woman whose head was covered in a Monet water lilies bandana and whispered, I had cancer and beat it. You will too. She was by herself in a halo, that glowy, drawn, greenish other state, hugging the mug of coffee, maybe tea, maybe just hot water with lemon to her chin at the place Lois and I love. English garden, French windows, muffins so big they cover the whole plate. On the way there, we get each other crazy, guessing what they'll have for us. Mango blackberry, coconut banana, macadamia passion fruit. Maybe she wanted to get away, Lois says in the car home. Maybe she wanted to pretend, have one moment of not being sick, and you took that moment away. I drove back alone. I'd buy her a muffin, every one in the whole store, one for every day for the rest of her life. Dear Lord, dear lady, I made a terrible mistake today. I'd like to read two more poems. And this one I didn't write, although I wish I had. This is from Kai's book. New book just came out, gorgeous book. I can't recommend it enough. Mining for Stardust. I hope I do it justice, Kai. It's a beautiful poem. It's called Essence. I thin the seeds already sprouting in the bamboo garden, the radish, beet, carrot, and bean. Pulled each birth out of the earth and laid it on my tongue, crushed it with my teeth. And did you know these tiny sprouts, these little leaves and baby greens already hold the heavy flavors of their final selves? If only we tasted our own essence from birth, knew the transformations to come, we're all part of the becoming, that we had the imprint all along. From this beautiful book by Kai. Thank you, Kai. I'd like to end with this poem, written a couple years ago, but it means a lot to me. And it's for my dad. Celebrating his 92nd birthday the year his wife died. He goes to Ben's Deli because the waitress doesn't ask how he is. He takes most of the corned beef from the sandwich, piles it on the edge of the plate, makes a thinner one with enough left for two nice ones at home. The waitress packs his leftovers, extra slices of rye and half sour pickles in wax paper and 2 mustard cups. She never removes the other setting. She lets him sit as long as he wants. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. That was sublime. And I love your poems. You know that. And I feel Happy to have had you here. Our next reader is Kai, and we've had a taste of her work already, if you haven't heard it, on Wednesday Night Poetry and taken part in that extravaganza, that weekly extravaganza. Kai is the author of 4 collections, most recently Mining for Stardust from Flower Song Press that you've heard about, and previously Incandescent from Sibling Rivalry Press in 2019. She was recently awarded the 2021 Governor's Art Award and named Best Poet in Arkansas by the Arkansas Times. She's also a teaching artist with the Arkansas Arts Council and host of the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the country, Wednesday Night Poetry. She lives with her wife in Hot Springs National Park. I welcome Kai Coggins.
Thank you so much, Robbie. Such beautiful, beautiful work from Michael. If we could all just give him another round of applause, even though we can't hear each other, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah. It's beautiful, beautiful work. So personal and touching, Michael. It's an honor to share this virtual stage with you. And Robbie, thank you so much for inviting me today. It's so cool to be in California this morning with you all. So I'm honored to be here. My name is Kai Coggins, and I'm a poet, and I'm here to share my brand new book with you all. It just came out on 11/11, so it's been officially born for about 10 days now. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to share this work with so many different audiences that may or may not know that I'm here, that I exist, and that I'm writing poems in the world right now. This book very much came out of survival and getting through the pandemic. As Robbie mentioned, I'm the host of Wednesday Night Poetry, and it's the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the entire country. And when we first were on lockdown, that first Wednesday, I couldn't have the open mic. We couldn't meet. We were in lockdown. So I scrambled and I asked the poets locally here in Hot Springs to send me a video of themselves reading a poem. And I posted it all on that very first Wednesday of lockdown. And we didn't break our streak. The streak was unbroken. So the next day the next week, I opened it up to poets anywhere in the world. And it's just been such a humbling experience for me to say that over 4,000 poets on 6 of the 7 continents on the planet have been a part of Wednesday Night Poetry. And it's grown into this just exponential space of community and healing. And 2020 was really hard, y'all. We just went through some really traumatic stuff, and we are not even on the other side of it just yet. Starting with the pandemic, of course, and then, the protests, and then the presidential election, and then another round of the pandemic, and we're still knee deep in it. So the very first poem in the book was written on the first day of lockdown, and it sort of chronicles our experience collectively through that very difficult year. And I would read these poems every week on Wednesday Night Poetry. That was my assignment of the week. So it sort of propelled me each week to write something new. And then it became this book. So a couple of weeks into the pandemic, I wrote this poem, and it's called "Today I Washed My Hands in a Mucky Koi Pond." Today I washed my hands in a mucky koi pond, and I have never felt more clean. I did not scrub or scald my palms and wrists and fingers. No song lingered in my head telling me when to quit scrubbing. No bubbles or suds, only silt and mud, and the water was freezing. Call me thrill seeker, but the 5 koi fish needed a bath. The falling of leaves in the winter's freeze were both politely asked if they could leave because my darling and I had sunshine, a pump, a hose, and a plan. And today I washed my hands where parrot feathers, green, sprawling algae vines intertwined with mine. Call me brazen, but I changed my jeans into cut-off shorts, my work boots into river shoes, and became a slick fish, koi kai, and Penelope'd myself into the pond, but I didn't go there to die. I walked in to resurrect spring in the water. ushered my underwater friends into a new season, slow and cautionary. My ankles and shins froze as my fingers dove down to the leaves, blanketing black the pond bottom. My hands became wet rakes, grabbing and slopping decaying autumn to shore. My beloved manned the pump, siphoned half the chilly water out and over the lip to dry land. And today I washed my hands between slippery, bright orange fish, calling them each by name: Rocket, Luna, Goldie, Pinks, Biggie Stardust. Call me childish, but with each scoop of leaves, I begged to touch them, for them to swim up to me like little dogs. But not being able to clearly see through the water, I jumped back and squealed when my rake hands slowly brushed their fish bodies. We laughed and I smiled wide like a child. And this type of innocence is not for most people, this type of shared tenderness. But today I washed my hands and my feet and my legs like a little girl, splashing and giggling in a muddy puddle. Call me sentimental, but I get attached. And when I name something, it becomes mine, my children of other kingdoms. And the all-white koi fish who came to me in a dream, I named rice paper. He vanished in the fall, and I thought he was just hiding, all this time tucked away because he was just too beautiful to be bothered by all of this winter. And every day, as the weather started warming, I would do a little head count, wishing to find his beautiful white tail paint brushing sky reflections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, never 6. And today I washed my hands with a ghost. I remember us digging this giant hole, laying the plastic liner and dragging these stones and boulders to edge this hope of a new world, and how we filled it with fresh water and lilies and dreams that one day in the future, we would sit at our koi pond and silently watch the fish swimming in infinite patterns of color just under the surface. And today, the world outside is a different world. The paradigm of everything we know is shifting like a rock slide into a chasm of what we do not know. But we do know that our koi fish are strong. The yellow irises on the shore are sprouting mighty and rooted. A chorus of huge frogs conferences daily on the hot stones. Dragonflies dance an aerial ballet, and their friendly pond is clean, empty of leaves and muck, filled with fresh water and joy. And today, I wash my hands in it over and over again. The next poem I'm going to read is called Bridge. And the book, again, it chronicles, it's an intentional chronicle of what we went through. So it's very much, when this happened, I wrote a poem. When this happened, I wrote a poem. This is called Too Wide to Bridge. It's Good Friday, the middle of the night, and I try to sleep, but I can't quiet the mind spinning in so many directions at once. It's Good Friday, and it was good, honestly, and I didn't even know the day of the week until I laid down. I spent hours today photographing chipmunks and bluebirds and butterflies in the spring bursting sun, while outside these paradise walls, a COVID crucifixion is hammering nails into boxes, holding thousands of my brothers and thousands of my sisters. And tonight there are prisoners in hazmat suits getting paid $6 an hour, digging New York mass graves, stacking up pine caskets of the unclaimed. These are the ones that nobody comes for, the ones who die alone, the ones who have no friends or family, no kids of their own. And I don't know how to sit with this. This chasm is too wide to bridge for the poem, but it's Good Friday. And no, it was not good. And I just had to write that into the gospel of now. as Michael mentioned and read so beautifully, I did spend a lot of time in the garden. Of course, there was really nothing else to do, and I live in Arkansas, and we have acreage, and so that was my relief every day, was just to go outside and be in nature. Layla, my dog is growling. Sorry. This is called Tendrils. I seem to be finding all of my poems in the garden. This isolation from people has me speaking in the language of leaves and leaving. This morning, I find my poem in the raveling snow peas, twisted up in their reaching, their climb and striving up the guiding trellis, all tendrils and swirl, all beauty and growing, unfurling more and more each moment, the way I reach for you more and more each moment, all wanting and ache unfurling, the way my gentle tendrils reach and ravel into the space between us.
Well, thank you so much, Kai, Michael. Those were two beautiful sets of poems. And thank you so
I
much for.
wasn't done, but
Oh, you were going to read one more?
Yes,
Okay.
I was going to read one more. I was just muting it so that I could tell my wife to come
Okay.
and get my
I'm
dog.
sorry.
If that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
The last poem I'd like to read is called, let's see, Plume. If you remember, there was a giant plume of dust that came to us from Africa in the year 2020. And it was right after the George Floyd murder and all of the protests were going on. And so I wrote this poem. It made our sunsets really beautiful, if you don't remember. So this is called Plume. I am thinking about the way the African dust is blowing in from the sub-Saharan continent, a plume that is consuming our skies, and how this hasn't happened in half a century. Dust of a desert across an ocean, and we are breathing in the particles of sand and life and heat and strife from a desert calling back to her stolen children. If they can't come home to the motherland, I will cross the sea for them to breathe, to breathe, to breathe her in with every breath. And yes, it's making our sunsets golden and pink and purple, the hues coming in that wouldn't normally be in view. But maybe this isn't about sunsets. Maybe this isn't about you. The haze, like a warm gauze over the open wound of this country. Beautiful. Or maybe this is here to show us we are still so connected that nothing ever really disappears. That water evaporating from the tears on our faces just goes into space to fall down again as rain. This cycle of letting go the pain and pulling in and dropping down again. Maybe this force of nature lifting up hundreds of millions of tons of African soil into the atmosphere and bringing it here when we are at our most fear is an unburial, an overturn, a rebirth of earth, like the great gardener tilling the soil, singing her song for Emmett Till, for Tamir and Trayvon and Brianna and Sandra and Eric and Freddie and Ahmad and George and Elijah and the infinity of hashtags to rise into the motherland, mother sand, mother's hands, dust that moves in the wind to remind us of who we are when we end and who we are when we begin. Particles of dust, painting the sunset a different color. Red, orange, yellow hues, a fire in the sky. I breathe in Africa. I breathe in you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. These are from Mining for Stardust. I appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Would you like to put a link for the book into the chat so that people can order it?
Absolutely. You can get a signed copy right here. Boop. And it'll go from my hands to yours. Thank you, Robert.
And Michael, if you want to put your story collections in, you can go ahead if they're still in print. I don't know when they came out.
Yeah, a long time ago, but thank you.
Okay. I wish you had a book of poems. I would love to have that too.
Thanks.
If you ever change your mind, I want to read it. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll launch now into our open. And today I've put myself into it, as I very rarely do. There are a few people missing. So the very first person on the list is not here, and that is Rosemary Bone. And Tom Weiss, I don't really see Tom either. I see Mila Vanderhoff.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so it's 5 minutes or 2 poems, whichever comes first.
Thanks. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's wonderful. I'm still amazed. I'm calling in from the Netherlands, and I'm still amazed that technology allows us to do this. And I have one poem for you guys today. It's a bit of a longer poem, but within 5 minutes, so don't worry. And what happened to me in lockdown is that these two fantasy characters emerged, and they're called Ox and Mandarin, and I kind of went on adventures with them. And this poem is called a Rorschach because it's kind of shaped like a Rorschach test, and it invites you to see in it whatever you want to see in it. So Ox and Mandarin, a Rorschach. Sometimes ox and mandarin slow dance till morning, music like a tender cocoon, spinning in the center of their own gravitas. They haven't met, but they hold each other close. After all, what else is life but an elaborate dream of skin? Sometimes there's an ocean called night, and it cradles ox and mandarin. It holds them brazen and dear, sinking them like submarines. Have you ever stopped to consider scrap metal could hold so much potential? To find a bull's head in a biker's seat, a siren in a distant fruit? Sometimes ox and mandarin are stopped in the street. Without question, without precedent, are made to haul up their belongings for excavation. An ox has to explain the likeness that centers the rough cave, and Mandarin refers to his cousins for trees. And when they reassemble themselves in the dead of what has left them, they always find parts missing. They only have the facts of matter. And yes, sometimes Ox and Mandarin like to rack up a patrol for fun. Then Mandarin finds ways to become a clear, visible sun. Then Ox in the back studies patterns of knitting and describes them as cars, as suspect destinations. And sometimes Ox's horns lit up like half a moon, and everybody knows a new tide is coming, a tide of friendship and ill reckoning, a tide of sullen whispered beauty that no longer needs to be detained to hold true. Sometimes ox and mandarin consume each other like questions, like what allows morning such stellar grandeur. And sometimes ox and mandarin are a tendency to be close, a luminous web of interactions that shows us what we owe ourselves when good faith is lost. Sometimes ox and mandarin are made of the simple light that binds a thought to a thought and that we call constellations. And they know as foreign guide dogs. And sometimes ox and mandarin consider themselves lucky like that, to have words for things others find missing. Because sometimes all ox and mandarin want is to be little gods playing in the still unbroken fields. Thank you.
Lovely sound going there, Mila. Good to have you, and I hope you'll return in the future.
Thanks.
Our next person isn't here either. So, Mark Petrie, unless you're hiding under Michael Mark's name here. Marianne Hurt. You're here.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
I'm going to read two poems from my fairly new book, Once Upon a Tar Creek, Mining for Voices. I just need to let you know that Tar Creek is in Oklahoma, and it's been called the worst environmental disaster no one has heard of. And the water is orange, and lead and zinc mining took place there until the late 1970s, and the lead and zinc were found on Quapaw Indian land. So these are two poems from that book. The first poem is a persona poem. It's called Brother Lead and Cousin Zinc Want to Know. Tri-State Mining District, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, 2016. Both of us now start to question just what if we'd stayed underground, laid low. How what if the old US of A government hadn't sent down whole bunches of brown-skinned folks to a land nobody wanted? And what if our mineral perfect cells hadn't been just right for ammunition, medicine, batteries, paint, makeup, print, gas, all the stuff people now just feel a right to? But there we were, ripe to be discovered, and suddenly we're a wilderness bonanza. Everyone wants a piece of us, wants back what first nobody wanted. All the finagling, swindling, but we're used up. Look at us. Orange water, sinkholes, chat piles. We left our legacy, but oh Lord, what will become of any of us now? The last poem in the book is titled The Echo Still Sings, July 4th, 2009, Quapaw Powwow, Oklahoma. The old men tap the dirt, dance loose and light, hear fossil rhythms. The earth has held them so long. The young boys fancy dance, flashy and fast, medium war beat, ruffle, crow hop, fast beat, strength and stamina. Someday the dirt will let us all go, then scudding leaves, free falling clouds, maybe fox arteries. In the end, we become what we love. The echo still sings. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. It's good to hear from you. Our next reader is Judy Cronenfeld. You're muted, huh?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Kai. Those were fantastic readings. Mark, your work makes me want to read parent poems, of which I have many. So I'll read one uncollected one and one from my book, Groaning and Singing, that's coming out from Future Cycle in February. So the first one. Results. After dropping gutter ball upon gutter ball, my mother in her skinny 80s, who'd never bowled or played a sport in her long immigrant life, got up for her last try, following our visiting son's 6th or 7th spare. Desperate for something to do in our town, he told us and his grandparents bowling would be fun. So Mom stood at the lane in the grasshopper's flats she hadn't exchanged for bowling shoes, holding the ball in both hands, fingers avoiding the holes, then set it down with a little nudge. The ball began to roll with preternatural slowness. It seemed it might take eternity for her turn to be done. It was infinitely slower than the arc of the moral universe, but surprisingly steady. Still, we could have placed bets on inertia or friction while waiting until it hit the head pin at the magic angle, and as we gaped and Mother clapped her hands together, mesmerized, one pin after another languidly lost balance, tripping a brother until they all lay felled like a forest during a volcanic eruption, and the scoreboard lit up. What were the odds? 1 to 10,000? It felt like an oppressed peasant winning the presidency in some third world country. My mother's smile looked shy, but secretly victorious as a Valhalla warrior's. and Dad and Gramps and Dan and I whooped and hooted for her joy. And this one is in a slightly different tone and a little longer, and is a New York poem. I do a lot of those, as well as a mother poem. Paid work. With a wave like a flag's over Yankee Stadium, my young mother runs down our Bronx street toward the subway and her new job at a Manhattan doll factory. As I set out for school, apartment key hanging from my neck on a red ribbon she gave me, scuffing the shoes she polished against the sidewalk. All day she will stuff gray kapok into the cloth arms, legs, and torsos of pale pink baby dolls, and breathe in rag dust in the fluorescent lit perpetual dusk of the grime windowed loft, and yak with the girls over the clackety hum of the sewing machines until the boss squawks about the output. At lunch, she descends in the accordion-gated, open-sided lift into the blaze of the honking Manhattan street, stampeded by busyness moving west and east, boys running wheeled racks of tuxedos and overcoats, secretaries and shoppers wearing veiled fascinators, feathered toques, clicking by in sling-back sandals and two-tone spectator pumps. A hurried pastry and coffee at the counter of the luncheonette, while the boss's bookkeeper wife, adorned with her little heads and feet of mink, dines on salami and eggs at the deli, and mom is back on the floor until time to rush home again. And when weary dad arrives, gaily suggests dinner at the 161st Street cafeteria for the three of us. 60 years on, I read in the LA Times about Mukta Mola and Kanchi Hazi, who skim like breezes over the rubble streets 6 days a week in their pristine shalwar kameezes, on their way to 8 hours sewing blouses in the glare and din of beauty garments, private, limited, Dhaka, Bangladesh, and proudly send half of their tiny salaries home to their natal families in villages where mothers-in-law tyrannize their younger sisters. And I remember my mother in 1953, her eye aglint with that fresh sense of entitlement.
That's beautiful. I'm looking forward to your book, Judy.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm looking forward to it too. I want to talk to you about something in connection with that privately later.
Okay. Our next reader is Anita Larrick.
Thank you so much. And I'm speaking to you from Toronto, but really the grateful Zoom universe. This poem is entitled Jazz Paradiso. Homage to Cinema Paradiso, love theme, as performed by trumpeter Chris Botti. I sit on the stage of a family dinner, facing the pearl set in silence. What use can an old oyster be? Just ancestor in waiting. I step closer, take her hand, see the fields where we sang, scattered flowers. It is said that flowers cling to those who are afraid. She brushes me away. Into crisscross nights where light and shade mark up alleys, clubs, hushed martinis, runny leftovers, designed by need. Botti, your mouth cups a room where the wild oyster glides unhinged in the night play of flesh and melody before turning to rock. Where family secrets spill out to tipsy strangers, about one folded inside the other like bedrock, then turbulence, scattered into particles, unable to reattach, yearning betrayed. Willed far away, yet so near, there are cliffs staged in isolation. On the mount, you stand and blow, growl, tremble, flutter, moan, cry up and down angry walls. Prophet mouthpiece, activate the jilted spirits, crack open the codes, forgive us. Enter me as slow rain dissolves rock. Run your tongue, run your lips, raise your horn, slow. Hold beyond holding until the note spills across forsaken skies. Entice the ancestors to return, to pass on what has not been said. In this oyster room buried deep, bitten out of time, family voices arise, frame by frame, in malice, then collapse. An undressing, mouths severed from word, from blame, rather, species struck together in original song. I kneel before them and weep, here in this evening primrose room, where yellow petals listen, where evening stars listen, in this room, consecrated by the night, by the melody. Thank you. And if I have time for one quick more, this is an environmental one. Sleeping with waves. If you have not saved your work in the computer's memory, all is lost. A lifetime asks this question: are you saved? This is a quote from Zalman Schachter Shalomi, Aging to Saging. Some of you may have heard of it. I highly recommend it. In fish time, I rest between stretches of pain, eyes open, stomach filled with wastewater, wipes, plastic fibers, failures, 3 a.m., undigestible. At first, the flutters, unmarked words, pushed down. I lie still. My belly is a map of twisting biography, station to station, abandoned, names pounding, just out of reach. Where am I? Gut splits open to flashes of heroism, my ambition printed on skyscraper waves, defying the gods of wind and blood to stay up. I was a child of poisoned flowers that lay in deep places. I dove down, returned with wounded stones from that hole for souls overturned by life, screaming darkly in the wreckage. Sorrow of the fall, sorrow of the rise. I clutched the stones through gales, through monster lips exploding into frailty. No turning back, losing strength. Not I, lie labeled, unnamed, despised, swallowed. My sea family beats inside me, a sickness or something else, held together by the prayer of stones. I read the waves, try to save the evidence. This is why I am still here. I diarize the odors in dying air, the unflowering of plants, my debilitation. Beat of the hurt, beat of the healing. My mind travels, harvesting the night. Thank you.
Hi, I'm next on the open mic, and after me, there'll be room for a couple of more people who might want to read. So I'm going to share the screen because my first poem is an ekphrastic. I like to do those. Sorry, I didn't get just the image in. It's the poem is After the Large Blue Horses by Franz Marc, 1911. We stood in the meadow, calling out to the horses, the large blue horses, hocked deep in clover, roan hills rising behind their backs in early light. No one has yet saddled or bridled them, braided their manes, looked into their great gray eyes. Rain pools in their hoof prints, spawning mosquito larvae and tadpoles. Wherever they stand, the meadow becomes forest. Curved white trees sprout from beds of cushion moss and lichen, casting spires of lupin, crowns of Queen Anne's lace into the shade. At last, the horses raise their heads, regard us with unearthly eyes. They lead us to the river we have heard of, but have never seen. Okay. Thank you. My second poem is not an acrostic. It's called Where is Home? And both of these poems were published at McQueen's Quinterly. And I totally recommend that you have a look at that journal and consider sending poems to it, because the editor is really wonderful and the poems in it are wonderful too. Where is Home? And it has an epigraph from Sarah Sarai, her poem, The Quiet Softness. In your lovely city, you can weep. Maybe that's what makes it home, a place where you can weep, laying your heavy head down in your arms and just letting go. I did enough of that in the brick row house in Philadelphia, where I grew up. Balanced on the scorching radiator, bony as a starving horse, wishing I were somewhere else, seeing without seeing the same blank corner of the block, parked cars and delivery vans, bringing us warm pies and packages, bottles of milk, newspapers fallen into the garden in a heap. I left that place behind decades ago. Why then, when I saw old photos of the Bushrod Library across the street, the old newsstand on the corner where the Holocaust survivors gathered to speak their mama lotion, read Yiddish newspapers, Tarkin playground where I'd skate in winter, run through the sprinklers in the summer heat, I feel a tug drawing me back to a place that isn't there now. People who have died or gone away, most of whom I never thought about before now. Home isn't in the tears I shed there or in the time I spent living in that house as a child, a teenager, when I was taking it all in, gathering a harvest that would last a lifetime. What would I tell that crying child? I'd say to store it all, grief's golden grain, to remember, set it to rise in a warm corner. That will be your home. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Donna. Thanks so much. Is there anyone here who would like to read? I can take up to 3 people. How about you, Donna? Something from your new book? You have to unmute yourself first.
I hate to follow you, Robbie. You just knocked me out. So, but yeah. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm going to read Sympathy Pairs. I've never read this out loud, and I don't have a dog anymore, so even my dog hasn't heard it. Okay, sympathy pairs. Sympathy pairs are paired with apples and a promise of shipping within 2 days. Regular pears and apples take longer to box and send. Sympathy pears and apples are suitable for painting, but the artist must supply the skull, the worm, or fly. Sympathy pears and apples arrive with no protocol of care. Simply eat or ignore. No chore to water, prune, or keep a bloom. Dear bereaved one, eat or not, while you ponder a better place, his will, her plan, everlasting love, or none of the above. I just have to say, I sent a hell of a lot of sympathy pears from Harry and David this year because of the horrid year we have endured and other random awful things. So thank you.
Do you want to read another one? You're muted again.
No, thank you, but thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. How about you, Mary? You have to unmute yourself, though. Unmute.
I'd have to get something. I don't have anything here with me. Hang on a minute.
Where'd your dog go, Kai?
She's up and down. She was crawling across the keyboard when Donna was reading, which I thought was interesting because she typed that in the chat, / whatever CB. So I thought I would let you know, Donna, that there is a dog, in fact, listening.
I'll
I
bet you
usually
she.
forget to look at the chat because I get all absorbed, so
Yeah.
I'm not a real chatter, but
I just thought it was funny because you just said that and she had crawled over. She's kind of part cat also.
she
and so
probably knows
just
how
kind of
much I miss having a
crawled-
dog. I mean, I am
Yeah.
miserable without a dog, but I have so much travel
Aw.
forthcoming. I have to wait till I get back and then getting a dog.
Okay, Mary.
Okay, I got something.
All right.
What's Left is the name of it. What's Left is a ruined city where, like refugees, we sift through radioactive ash, collecting fragments, small lobes like teardrops of melted glass or metal, still bright beneath the dust. A comfort to hold like souvenirs, like relics, while waiting for the half-life of memories to pass, for their dangerous traces to fill our lungs with small hemorrhages of grief, eroding our bones, leaving them weak and hollow, until we are too dry for tears, moving like gray shadows through a landscape of crushed brick and the twisted iron ribs that once held up the walls of a lost world. In the ruins, on stones that hold the echo of incineration's heat, we sleep alone, dreaming of trees wreathed with vines, full of exotic flowers, of air without the acrid scent of smoke. We dream of water, of dews and mists, clean rivers and cold lakes, of deer and bear and birds returning, of a glad morning where over the jungle, the forest, the garden, a flock of wild green parrots rises like hope into the open air. That's one of the pandemic poems. It's not so direct, but it definitely has its roots in 2020.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you have another one?
Oh, I have a short one afterward.
And then I forgot someone who I said could read. So, Jim, I hope you don't mind my bad memory. Go ahead.
You want me to do another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Afterward, will clouds remember us? Will whales sing of how we hunted them, then learned to love them too late? Will the earth forgive the burden of our poisons and plastic trash? Will the stars know we named and numbered them, wove them into all our dreams and stories at the end of every long count of our mythologies? Will anything remain, even as long as those red ochre handprints our first ancestors left on cave walls, saluting us across the chasms of deep time? Will there be anyone here to recognize the traces, dark or shining, that we have left behind? Thank you.
And now our last reader, who calls himself propaganda poet, him or herself, propaganda poet. Take it away.
Hello, hello. I have been listening this whole time, but I'm traveling. So, but I thank you for this opportunity to be honored with your stage. And thank you, Kai, for letting me know about it. I too made a pandemic book, so and inspired a lot by Kai. So here's a couple of small poems from that book, and then one poem-sized poem. So the first one is the title track, Is It Will, called 2020 Division. I truly thought that the world would be better than this, but I guess I was wrong. Time to go write another song. You see, this world makes no sense to me, so I make music and poetry. And then this piece is called, This Is How Wednesday Night Poetry Virtual Online Saved My Life. Every time I spill my sunshine, you bring flowers to my darkness. In a world that is far too ugly, far too often, your beauty keeps me alive. And then this is a spoken word piece for all of you that I dedicate to you. Thank you for having these spaces. Thank you for making the world a better place. Your ripples that go out in the universe save lives. And thank you for that. So this is for you guys. I wish I could tell y'all to step off because I'm about to burn you with the friction in my diction, but recently I've made a decision based solely on gut feeling, and it's still got my heart, mind, and body reeling, so I've been hitting a wall. And this writer's block shit has got me feeling small because I'm supposed to be able to smith my words and craft my style because there for a while I thought that I needed to be heard, but maybe I just needed to hear myself think. So I could gather my thoughts like a gathering of nations without the hesitation of a society of convenience where everything is supposed to save our time, but nothing ever seems to get done. So run, rat, run, because that's how things are done these days. Push through the maze, push through the haze, learn to breathe through the graves of this 8-day-a-week overtime craze, or learn to become nothing but suicide slaves. In the land of the supersized and the home of the slum, there ain't no time to grow old because you ain't even allowed to be young. Well, I intend to fight fire with a sharply honed tongue, but poetry is more than poet me. It's poet you and poet true. Having the courage to turn this soapbox into a platform so that we can shine the light through the shitstorm of the norm because enlightenment has found that this shit just ain't normal. But our rights are still being blocked like a decaying bridge to true freedom, just waiting to collapse under our train of thoughts because they're trying to train our thoughts by taking away from our schools music, theater, and art. But we sure can fill in bubbles with number 2 pencils. Just more stencils marking the way for marketing status quos. And I don't know where any of this is going to go because lately my flow has been hitting a wall, and this wall stands tall, like the one that leaves us all imprisoned in religion shopping malls instead of just kicking it in the halls of karma where good deeds actually still mean something. Instead of just being a list of things to do to get your soul through in hopes that someday you might get to earn those wings, but there is still something that we can't quite grasp, and we have been trained to be afraid to ask because they don't want us to know that we were all born with these wings and the ability to sing. No, they'd rather have us kissing some false idol's ringleader of a kiddie porno ring, and they say that he's closest to God. What's it going to take for us to realize that all we got to do is just drop all this shopping and step out the door, stop talking when we pray, learn to listen some more. But alas, this too shall pass. So I guess I'm just going to go kick it back in my house and smoke some more hash and try to pass through these bricks of ego and this mortar of fear because I didn't come here just to speak. I came here to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down and shut up. I'm tired of banging my head on this wall, and I'm sick of feeling small. You see, I came here tonight to unblock my rights by listening to you all. So thank you for that. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Your beauty truly keeps me alive.
Well, that about wraps up today's wonderful reading. And I thank Michael, Mark, and Kai Cogan, and all the people at the open mic for being here today and creating yet another wonderful forum for poetry to speak. And we'll see you next month. I have a date, but I don't remember what it is. Jim, do you? Maybe not. But I'll be posting soon enough, advertising it. And you're all welcome to come back and bring your friends. Thank you so much. Thanks again to our wonderful features. Bye.
Bye.
I've recorded this and it'll be posted at some point. So